Hi there, Volkswagen owners. Today in your 2018 Volkswagen Atlas, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Curt's 4-pole flat trailer connector vehicle wiring harness. And this is what our wiring harness looks like when it's installed. That's right, it's completely hidden on this vehicle. The harness is found inside here at the back. And this way it protects it from the elements. It's designed from the manufacturer to stay here, and it will last significantly longer than one mounted outside the vehicle, one that's exposed to moisture and corrosion and dirt, ones that you often have to fill with dielectric grease and clean out constantly to keep working. With it staying inside the vehicle here, it is free of all of those harmful elements, so it'll last significantly longer. When you're ready to use it, we simply bring it out the back here, and we can go ahead and shut our cover. And when we shut the lift gate here, it'll pinch in between our weather stripping. We just want to make sure we avoid the striker at the middle. Any of these other locations here, our weather stripping is going to pinch it to hold it in place, but it's not going to cause any damage to it. And here you can see we've got plenty of length to be able to connect to our trailer here at the back. We've got our 4 flat pole trailer connector here. This gives us all of our necessary lighting signals, which includes our left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps, which will keep us DOT compliant in all states. If you're making a quick run from one place to another, maybe dropping off one trailer, picking up another trailer, maybe there's often times when you're moving, things like that, you can, instead of putting it back inside, you can just use that dust boot there to secure it to the back here, so that way it's ready when you make that trip to that next spot there. The dust boot can also be used when you're storing it inside, because you can bundle up all the wire and wrap the dust boot around it to store it in place. One of the things I like about this harness is that the harness has a module that's integrated into the harness, and that module has its own dedicated power circuit. The module will monitor your passenger and driver side lighting signals, and the module will then reproduce those signals and send them out our 4-pole flat trailer connector here to light the lights on our trailer. What's nice about the module doing all this work is if we have any shorts or faults on our trailer that would, under a normal circumstance, affect the wiring on our vehicle here, the module is able to monitor those circuits. And if there is any kind of shorts or faults, it's able to shut down that circuit to prevent any damage from occurring. But in the event the module is unable to shut it down in time, since it has its own dedicated power circuit with an inline fuse, the fuse would simply pop there for the wiring, which would shut down your 4-pole wiring, but it'll prevent anything from affecting any of the lights on our vehicle, so no damage will occur to the vehicle. We can then repair the issue with our trailer and replace the fuse for our 4-pole harness here, and we're back up and running again, keeping our vehicle nice and safe. Now that we've covered some of the features of our harness, why don't you follow along with us and we'll show you how to get it installed. There is a bit of the interior panels we have to take apart to get this one installed, and you will have to do a little bit of drilling. I would say this is something that you can do in your garage. I would give yourself about 2 hours to do it, maybe a little bit longer depending on how comfortable you are working on your vehicle. There's some additional components you're going to need as well. We're going to be using a grommet because we have to drill some holes to get our wiring fed from the inside to the outside, and I'd also recommend some black silicone to further seal up that grommet to keep any kind of exhaust gases out of the vehicle and keep any moisture out as well. We'll begin our installation here at the back of the vehicle. We'll need to get our paneling out of the way here so we can access our wiring. This one here just lifts up and it pulls out. We can set that aside. And then under that, you'll have your spare tire. We're going to take out this whole paneling here. Our spare tire is actually underneath that. We're going to remove the nut here that secures our spare tire. It's a little stiff. It's actually quite stiff, so we're going to remove these. Just pull up to get out of your way there. And there we go. There's a little cross piece here that prevents that from unthreading, so you want to pull that up. Kind of hard to see when you've got those square pieces around it. And then we can remove our nut here at the center. And we're going to take all these pieces here. I'm just going to set these up in here. Also set our nut and those pieces up there. And then this will pull up. We can set this aside. And we'll pull our spare tire Actually, we don't need to take the spare tire all the way out of the way. If you've got enough room right here, see where my hand is, we just need to be able to route our wires past our spare tire. So if you want to get it out of the way, to just give yourself some more room, but it looks like you just push it forward there, and we've got plenty of room to work right there. Next, we're gonna get our jack components out of the way. We need to remove this panel across the back here, but to do that, you have to pull away from the edge here and then up, and this is kind of in the way. So we're just gonna lift up on the release lever there. And then we can undo that. That pops off of there, it just clips back into place on there. So snap that back down on there. And then we can just we're just gonna set that aside. And then we can pull up on this whole piece here. There's these little attachments right here and here that are holding it in place. And to remove these, we're gonna use just a pair of needle nose. There's 3 little openings in the top of it. You can take just 2 of the prongs of your needle nose pliers and stick them down in there. And then you can just thread this out of there. See, it's coming up right there. We'll do the same thing with the other one. And if we pull up just a little bit on it while doing that, it helps release it a little bit easier. Looks like we need to pull up a little bit on this one while pushing it as well. There we go. We can then just set that aside right there. We just needed to get it out of the way. We're gonna pull, for the most part, it's just straight up. I'm gonna be pulling outward ever so slightly because there's just these plastic tabs that go down into a slot, and we're gonna be lifting it up and out of the slot there. So underneath, on each side, just, there we go. And on the other side, and we can pull it up. And here's the little plastic pieces I was telling you about that go down to a slot here. So when we put this back together, we'll need to feed those back into those slots, lining these back up. We'll now need to access the connector behind our panel here. So we remove these, we can pull our panel away to access the wiring here. I found that if you grab it here at the very bottom, this is a good way to get it started. So we can pull out, it's got kind of a nice little nook for your hand to fit in. There we go, just get it started there. And then we can work our way up with our trim panel tool here, popping out any clips that we see along the way. So we're just kind of paying attention, looking to see if we see any clips as we peel this back. And if we see one, we'll stick our tool in there and pop it out. Now that we've got this side popped loose here on the driver's side, we're gonna turn our focus around the edge here, and there's this slatted grill portion here. That's actually an access panel for our wiring, taillight wiring. So we're just gonna pop that out of there with our trim panel tool. And that'll make it a lot easier for us to get our hands in there to work. But we still need this popped out though, so we can feed our wiring behind it. So inside this access panel, you'll see your connector for your factory wiring. This is the connector end from your new harness that we're gonna plug in between that connector. And this is the driver's side we're on here, so we want the one that's got the yellow, brown, and red wire on it like you see there. So I'm gonna reach in there now and I'm gonna disconnect it. You're more than likely gonna have a lock tab, and that's what this little red tab here is. You see on our new harness, you probably gotta pull back on that, and then you can press down on the release tab to pull it out. Once I stick my hand in there, you're not gonna be able to see, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that unplugged, and then just plug these right in line between the two. We're then going to perform the same procedures on the passenger side, but you're going to be running over the connector that is the single green wire going to it. So we just routed that over. We pulled this one out the same way, disconnected our factory connector the exact same way. And then here's that single green wire. Just got a bunch of white wires in there just to continue the connections from one plug to the next, but our green's the only one that we're really tapping into there. We'll then just plug this in line between our two connectors. Kind of fell down in there on me. So we'll just take our end here, plug it in just like we did on the other side, and then plug this one back into our tail light assembly here. and pressing in on that lock tab as well to make sure everything stays in place. So now that we've got our connectors plugged in, we really just need power and ground for our module to operate. So we're here at the front now. I've popped the hood. We're going to feed a fish wire down. This is just in preparation for the wire that we're going to route, because we're going to be routing it underneath the vehicle. So it's nice when you're down there if you've already got something to help you pull that wire up into the engine compartment here for our battery. So this is just kind of preparing for us for the future. We're going to feed this down behind the battery. We can go right there on this side would be fine. And we're using a piece of airline tubing, but if you're doing this at home, a good thing you probably have laying around the house would be like a metal coat hanger. You can unwind that and feed that down. So we're back here at our module once again. We've got our power and our ground wires here that we still need to make our connection to. You can ignore this fish wire. I was looking for a spot to feed it out back here, but that didn't work out, so we did that one at the front. We're going to hook up our black wire here. That comes in our kit. You'll get a bunch of it to the black wire off of our module. So we're going to go ahead and just pull that off of there. Get back just a little bit of the wiring here. We'll strip this back. And then we'll take one of the butt connectors that came included with our kit. We're going to slide it over the end where we stripped it, and then crimp it down. And if you need a pair of crimpers, you can get a set here at eTrailer from Performance Tools. That's what we're using here today. After we've got it crimped onto that side, we're going to crimp the other side to the wire coming off of our module here. It does come pre-stripped, so we're just going to twist it there, slide it into the other end of our butt connector, and then we'll just crimp this down to get both those black wires connected. Now we'll be feeding the rest of that black wire towards the front, but before we do that, we're going to hook up our ground wire and mount our module. The ground wire we're going to hook up in this area here. It's already got a ring terminal attached to it, and we'll use the self-tapping screw to do so. We're going to get the module mounted first though, so that way we can kind of get an idea that we're going to have enough wire length here to mount the module and get our ground on. You can see it's not very much, you don't get very much length for your ground wire there. So we'll take the module here, and we're going to go ahead and put the adhesive backing that comes in our kit onto the back of the module. So just peel off one side of the backing and affix that into place. And we're going to be putting it behind our panel there. So the first thing you'll want to do before sticking that module in place is we're going to put a little bit of alcohol on a rag, and we're going to clean up the area there behind it. So I'm just getting a little bit on a rag there. This will ensure that our double-sided adhesive will stick well to the surface here in the vehicle. And we're just cleaning up this area kind of down here towards the bottom behind our paneling. I'm just going to clean up all the area right around there. Because while we're doing this, we're also feeling for the flat areas that's back here, because that's where we're going to be sticking our module to, is nice flat area. So now we got that wiped off. Remove the rest of the backing, and then we can pull out on our panel here, bring our module down in there and stick it in place. And we're going to be putting our module right down there at the very bottom. And after we stick it, we need to make sure we feed our wires out the side along with your ground wire. And then we're also just checking to make sure that we can push the panel back in place so that we didn't obstruct it with our module. And that all looks good there. We're stuck in place. Our panel's going to go back, and we've got the wires that we need right here. So we can go ahead and get the ground attached now. That's the ring terminal we have here. And we're just going to attach it right here behind our paneling. So we're just going to run it into place about right there. So here's the screw that comes in your kit. We're going to use a 1/4-inch socket to run this in place. Slide your screw through the ring terminal and then just run it right into the sheet metal here behind our panels. Next thing we're going to need to do is get us a hole to get that black wire fed out and up to our engine compartment. We're going to use a 9/16 drill bit, and we're going to be adding our own plastic grommet to be able to feed that through. So we're going to head under this way, and once we hit this suspension cross beam right here, we're going to come right to the other side of that and go up. And you'll see that there's a factory hole that's located right there. But that doesn't go all the way through. So we're going to take our 9/16 drill bit now, and it is an extremely long one to be able to do this, and drill up through here so we can get inside and get our wire out. And that's it. Once we get it pushed through, we're going to pull that back down because there is a little bit of insulation right there that you're going to hit. So we can head back up top now, and we're going to find that hole under the insulation and get our wire fed down. We're now back inside the rear hatch area. You can see the spare tire here. Just underneath that last row of seats here before the spare tire, if we lift up on the carpet, that's where we'll find the hole that we had drilled out. We're going to use this plastic grommet, which you can get here at etrailer. We're going to slide that in. This does not come with your kit. This is something we're adding to be able to feed this wire through. And this will just poke down through that grommet hole. And then we can feed our wire down through this safely now without having to worry about the wire rubbing on the edge of sharp metal, potentially grounding it out. So now we're just going to grab our black wire here. We'll stretch it out first just to get any kinks and loops out of it. And then we're just going to feed it down through that grommet and then head up towards the front of the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and route this wire now, and then I'll show you the path that I took to get it up into the engine compartment. So here's where our wire came down through our grommet. From here we went above our rear suspension, stayed above our wiring, came right over here, and then this black paneling here, we actually just poked the wire up above the panel, and we do that all the way going to the front. We just poke it right up above the panel, just keep poking it in until it comes out all the way here at the front. Once we get here to the front, that fish wire that we had put down earlier, we can take our wire here, and we just use some electrical tape and taped it to that fish wire, and then we can head up top, and when we pull our fish wire now, that's going to finish routing the wire the rest of the way up into our engine compartment. We're now back up top here. We're just grabbing our fish wire, and we're just pulling it up. And there it is. There's our wire. Now after you've got this pulled up like this, we're going to take a peek back down below just to make sure that we do have it all the way pulled up, because it's not uncommon for this wire here to want to jumble up into a little knot and then it stops pulling because you got a knot down there and there's still some hanging down below. We don't want any stragglers left behind. So just head down there and take a look, make sure you got it pulled all the way up, and if you do, after that I like to put a zip tie on it somewhere to one of the factory harnesses here to keep it so it can't fall back down. So now we've got this up here, we've verified that it's pulled all the way up, we've got it secured there, just secured it with a zip tie. We'll take the harness, the fuse harness that comes in our kit, we're just going to cut that right in the middle there, and then we're going to strip back each end of our fuse harness here. On one end of our fuse harness, we're going to place a ring terminal, and on the other end we're going to be placing a heat shrink butt connector. So we're just going to slide our ring terminal on there and then crimp this down. And then on the other side here, rather than using one of the butt connectors that comes included in your kit, since we're in our engine compartment here where it's exposed to the elements, we're going to use a heat shrink butt connector instead. You can get these here at etrailer. This way, once we've got this installed on here, we can seal up the ends, keeping out corrosion to ensure a long-lasting connection. So after we've got this connected to this side, we're going to go ahead and connect it to the vehicle battery. But with this particular style of battery connection we're going to be attaching to, we don't want to remove the nut completely. So we're going to make a little notch in our ring terminal here. We're just going to cut it about right here. And then we're going to cut it again about right there. Just like that. So that way we can slide this over the end where we're going to attach it to. So now that we've got that prepared, we're going to grab our 10mm socket, come over to our battery here, just lift up on the battery positive cover. We'll loosen up the nut here. And that's all we need to do is just loosen it there to give ourselves a little bit of a gap. We'll then take our fuse harness. We're going to slide our ring terminal over the end there using that notch that we had cut. And then we're just going to tighten it down. Just kind of fold that over, push your cover down, and the other side here of our fuse harness is going to connect to the black wire that we routed up. I always like to leave a little bit of excess just for the future, so we're going to bring it back to about here. That seems like plenty of excess. Trim off what we don't need. We'll strip back the black wire. And then this is going to crimp to the other side of our heat shrink butt connector there. Now that we have our connection made there, we can grab a heat gun and shrink down our butt connector. If you need a heat gun, you can get one here at eTrailer. We're showing off one from Performance Tools today. This is the wireless battery-powered version. This one's very small, and I would say is not something that I would ever use down here in a shop setting like we're doing here. We're just kind of showing it off in the video. But if you're just needing a heat gun and just to get this wiring repair done, this is a nice cheap option that's fine if you're just doing occasional repairs, because you can see here how long it takes to heat down this butt connector. Definitely takes longer than a traditional heat gun would to heat it down. But it is a wireless option, so it's a little bit easier to work with. You don't need any extension cords or anything like that, because I don't know what your garage is like, or maybe if you're working in a driveway where cable length is really important, something like this could be really useful. And if you've got a trailer that you're planning on hauling and stuff, if you ever have any wiring repairs on it, this little heat gun would be a good little tool for just the occasional wiring repair. Maybe you had a corroded wire on one of your taillights or something on the road, hit one of the wires, you just gotta splice it back together. You can grab some heat shrink butt connectors, run out to your trailer and do so without having to get out a bunch of extension cables or hook up the trailer, so you can pull it closer to a workspace. You can kind of just get out there. So you can see where this is kind of neat. It does have a hot and a cool setting, and it runs for about 15 minutes. So now that we've got that shrunk down here, we can insert our fuse into the harness and then test everything out. I always like to test out the harness before I reinstall my back panels, because if we have anything that we have to adjust, we got to take those panels back apart. So we might as well make sure that everything's working properly now before we put those back on. And now we're going to grab our tester and plug that into the back. You could plug it into your trailer, but I highly recommend a tester, because if you have any faults on your trailer, you can get misinformation saying that, hey, there's an issue here with your vehicle, when it could be the trailer the whole time. So a small tester like we're going to plug in can help us verify that our vehicle side's working properly. So when we do hook up into our trailer, if we have any issues, we know, hey, that issue's on the trailer side. We already tested our vehicle. So here's our tester. You can get one here at eTrailer just like this. We want to verify that we have all of our proper lighting signals, which includes our left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. With all the signals working properly, at this point we can just reinstall any of our paneling in reverse order of how we removed them. If there's any spots where we need to zip tie up our wiring, we will do so. And the small location where we drilled the hole and put a grommet in place, we're going to take some black silicone and we're going to fill up the center of that hole with silicone just to help ensure that no moisture can enter and we keep any type of exhaust gases out of the vehicle. If you need some silicone, you can get some at eTrailer here as well. And that completes our installation of Curt's 4-pole flat trailer connector vehicle wiring harness on our 2018 Volkswagen Atlas.